All right, this meeting is being recorded. Be aware of what you are saying, and it's going to be public on the internet. So this week, let's go through the agenda. So first item is from Sean, which is propose a new deschedule strategy for pod lifetime. So Sean, are you online? You can.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. So yeah, I'm kind of new here, so I'm not sure how the process works exactly, but basically I have a link to the GitHub issue. So it's a proposal for a new strategy for the descheduler based on pod lifetime. So I'm not sure what else to say. So if you have any comments or suggestions on this proposal, let me know.
Yeah, so I took a look at the description. So what are you trying to do about the eviction? You mean the eviction in the scheduler, right?
Yeah, so this would be a new strategy. So basically would allow a user to, if you turn on this strategy, the pod lifetime strategy or max pod lifetime strategy, it would allow a user to specify a maximum lifetime for pods, and pods that are older than the specified lifetime would be evicted, essentially.
And I think it's good to add some description for the context for the use case, and so you want unlimited pod to be evicted, just if it's the running time exceeds the defined max pod lifetime hours, right?
That is, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm not that sure about the regular process of proposing one in the scheduler. So Mike, so I think we need to open a document similar like CAB in the scheduler so that to putting this thing forward, right?
Yeah, so there isn't really like a process, like you said, in the descheduler. There is an issue that's opened that I think Sean linked to here, where we've had a little bit of discussion about it. Pretty much just what kind of units should be, whether seconds or minutes or hours. So I think after looking at the API conventions, we settled on seconds for that. But really, if there's any more feedback to it, feel free to jump into this issue and give it. Otherwise, Sean, I would say that you could probably go ahead and open up a PR for it. If it isn't getting much attention, then you know, we just kind of add strategies to the descheduler, and then it'll get review in the PR too.
Yep. Yes, I can start working on a pull request for it.
I think the only thing that is missing here is what's the so there is an API for the pods that basically tells the autoscaler that a pod shouldn't be evicted, even if it would make like it would produce downscaling. So this probably should, a feature such like this one should probably respect the same API from the pods. Are you familiar with that one?
No, what API is that?
Trying to look it up. Disruptions API, I think it is.
The pod disruption budgets?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be one. But I think there was another one for eviction that the autoscaler uses, but I can't find it now. I'll try to look for it and I'll put it in the issue if I find it.
Excellent, that would be great. Thank you.
one side question for this scheduler. So if we define multiple strategies, and what if two strategies get conflicted? What's the desired result? For example, for this strategy, it wants to evict this kind of path, but for example, in another strategy, we pretend to reserve this kind of path. So who wins?
That's kind of a bigger design question for the descheduler, because the strategy alone won't affect. I mean that, because that's the kind of problem that we could run into with any of the strategies currently, is that there isn't really a set precedence. I think technically there is, in the way that the code is written. We just call out to each of these one at a time and run them. So there is an order that they run in, but I wouldn't consider that strictly defined. And I'd say that all the evictions of all the strategies are just kind of cumulative. So if one strategy wants to preserve this pod and then another strategy wants to evict it, it'll end up evicted with how the descheduler runs. It's the best way to assume.
Okay.
But I agree that is kind of an issue that I've noticed with the deschedulers, that it's not clearly defined what priority you want to give to different strategies, which could be a good improvement for it in the future.
Yeah, sure. All right. We have the second one is from Aldo. It's about how to deal with the extenders API in the V1 Alpha 2 component config. So Aldo, you can talk about that.
Yes, so the main concern here is that we already removed the policy from the V1 Alpha 2 configuration API. And that basically gives no way of specifying extenders in this version. So in the current state, if a user wants to have extenders, then they have to resort to V1 Alpha 1. So the other option is to add extenders back to the V1 Alpha 2. And we have two options there, which are either putting it in the root or putting it in the profile, which is the new API. And I think I have a preference for the root. And I know Abdullah has a preference for that too, given that extenders are tied to pod resources. So that's already a way for a pod to say that they don't want to be affected by this extender, by any extender. There is not many use cases for having extenders per profile, but then that's a question for the rest of the SIG to gather their thinking. Yeah, so basically we have three options: do nothing and let users that want extenders to use V1 Alpha 1, which is possible, put it in the root or put it in their profile. And yeah, we are close to code freeze, so we have to decide very soon.
Yeah. So my personal opinion is that we should choose option 1 or option 2. We shouldn't just leave it unsupported when we want Alpha 2. That is my personal opinion. Regarding option 1 versus option 2, I think it quite depends on the use case. If the user, I'm not quite sure if the user wants each profile to be associated with extender. Maybe we can have another option, which is define the extenders in the root. And in each profile, you can choose which extenders you want to associate from the root level. So that is a unit extenders defined at the root level, and you can choose which one. But yeah, that is just
right, because extenders can define like different actions, right?
Yeah,
define them in one place and then
define. Yeah, that's what I meant. Define center is one place, and you can choose which one you want to associate with individual profile. Yeah, that's just another option. But the tricky thing is we are very close to code freeze, so we seems cannot get enough feedback on this. So maybe we can come up with the safest way, so that maybe in the future we can make any modification which is we are able to achieve that. For example, if later we have user feedback says we want that way, and we just make our current design to be able to adapt to that. So based on this point, I think we can make fine with this.
So I think in that case, option one gives us less burden for this release, and it's easier to migrate to option two in the future by introducing a new API and a conversion.
Yeah, or even to the option I just mentioned, define a global standard.
Well, we can leave that, right? Even if we do option one, we can still add this list later if needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because that new API probably require more extensive discussion, whereas just adding extenders to the existing API, that API already has been reviewed, and yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, I think going the option one is the most safest way for we want Alpha 2.
Hi guys, this is Jed Record. I'm sorry for joining late, but I think you're having a good discussion on this. Is one of the questions we might ask ourselves: is there a reason not to do version one, to do option one? And likewise, is there a reason that we would not want to do for option two? I think we just talked about why we wouldn't choose option two. What about option one?
So the advantage of so why wouldn't we want option two? The main reason is that it adds too much. If a user wants to set the extenders in all of the profiles, then they have to copy and paste everything, which is a lot of burden. And our thinking is that for the most cases, they would want extenders to be available in all profiles.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, and I think to me option one sounds right, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if we could just for a moment play devil's advocate or look at why might we not want option one, just so that we don't miss something that might bite us.
So yeah, I guess the only reason for not having option one would be that a customer wants to set them per profile, and then somehow they can't filter by using resources, custom resources. So all their workloads need to go through the extenders. But that's already something that happens today. So like today, I mean, 1.17 and before, we only had one profile. We didn't have a concept of profiles anyways. So all workloads would have to go through the same API to selectively say, I don't want this extender to run for this pod. So I think it's no worse. I think it's simply not worse than today. At least it's at least not worse than today.
I agree with you, and maybe if this group comes to a decision to choose that option one, then maybe we identify, what we saw were pros and what we saw as cons, so that people understand why that decision was made.
Yep, agree. Yeah, I will try to put an extensive list, well, as extensive as I can in the issue, and then I'll open it.
Yeah, this kind of scenario reminds me of some similar API design in upstream. For example, a pod versus using a runtime class. So in the upstream, we know that runtime class is defined as a top level API, and it's referenced back via runtime class name in the pod spec. So, but in this case, of course, we can define the extender API as a top level. I mean, in the same level of the component config, instead of just in the root level inside of the component config. Then in each profile, we can reference the top level extender via the extender name. So that maybe is not option. Well,
yeah, I think
I will leave a comment there. But
yeah, but I think that the gist here is that option one gives us more flexibility in the future. So yeah.
Yeah, this is the API thing. Yeah, I think it's, but sometimes we need some API machinery folks to give some design suggestion of this. Yeah, let's move the discussion to the issue.
Sounds good.
And the third item is that because we are close to the code freeze, so there are some testing flakes happening on this our attention. So here I list the issue about end-to-end test flake. So basically there are three symptoms inside these issues. One is the end-to-end preemption issues. I think that is because of a bug defining some index out of the bound. So that should be an easy fix. The second one is on the second one is also on the preemption one, but that root cause has actually not identified. But through my local test, I found that if I don't specify the spec.node name directly, and that can resolve the issue. So we haven't go to the bottom of that issue, but I believe this kind of workaround is this issue. So I raise a PR and leave it to do there. So I don't want to block the main release. That is for preemption one. And second end-to-end flake is a little interesting. So that is newly introduced in this release, which is the pod topology spread one. So basically, what I did in the end-to-end test is I used a replica set to spin up 4 pods. And then I use a plain pod to schedule against the existing 4 pods so that I want to check whether the pods are scheduled evenly or not, right? To test the pod topology spread feature. But the interesting thing is that the label I define in the plain pod exactly matches the replica set's label selector. so that the replica set, there is a, I think there is a Go routine running in background, running infinitely, and pick up any pod it thinks is its own pod. Then it adopts that pod and set its own reference, the spec.own reference. So in that case, the plain pod was adopted, and then it exists the maximum replica. So it's then will immediately be deleted. So the entry types flags keep going on. So that is interesting bug. And the third one is about the new feature pod overhead. It's actually not a bug. It's because the end-to-end test checking into the code base, but the feature gate not checking in. So Eric Ernst is working on a fix for that. So by now, I think we are very good on the status. So that is for the end-to-end.
So the fix for the second bug you mentioned is just to check the owner reference to make sure that the owner reference points back to the replica set that thinks it's managing the pods.
Yeah. No, the fix is that make sure the plain pod now belongs to the replica set. So that the label defining the plain pod doesn't match the label selector of the replica set. Yeah, that is the fix.
Is that documented behavior? Like if you use...
Yeah, it's a very interesting behavior. So I think a lot of people are confused.
I thought it was okay. I thought we were fine to create a new pod with the same label. Yeah, my understanding is that the replica set should be making sure that the pods it's managing not only have the same label, but that they're the pods that replica set created.
So it's not, I think it's not clear documented. There is only a document in the pod template saying that be aware of the label selector and make sure if you don't want a pod to be controlled by the pod template, don't make the labels matches the pod templates, the label selector. So if you check the issue 88441, let me go through it. In the second issue, if you go down, second issue, 88556, oh, sorry, the first one, 88552, and I listed an issue. I thought it was an issue. So in the special notes to the reviewer section, I said it's end-to-end bug instead of CVAPS bug C88550. You can see my my debugging process and what the legate commented there. So I'm putting, yeah, it's an interesting symptom I found. So I guess a lot of people also have this confusion. Yeah.
Okay, so basically controllers would adopt.
Yeah, it will automatically adopt the pod which match its label selector. Yeah.
If
so
if that's documented, then yeah.
Yeah, if that's not documented clearly, we should probably make that clear that that's the outcome so that people understand that.
Yeah.
I'll go back. I'll read through I'll go read through it and leave a comment there.
Yeah, yeah. Please do that. Yeah. And we have 3 minutes left. Yeah. Anyone has any issues, update, please share.
I have a quick update. The multi-pole profiles has landed. So yeah, just very excited about it.
Yeah, that is one milestone actually, I think, for the scheduler. Now we can say we can give an answer to the users who ask about the conflicts about supporting multi-scheduler. Yeah, we can give another one. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, thanks, Aldo. So anyone else wants to share some update? All right, I think that's pretty much for this week's meeting. And next week I will see if we have agenda items. Otherwise, we will maybe cancel that. And that the week after next week, maybe I think Abdullah will come back. All right, thanks everyone for joining today's session. Yeah. Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good one.